Hi, welcome back to my channel and my review for Immaculate, the brand new horror film release starring Sydney Sweeney. So the story here is about this American nun who, after this traumatic childhood incident, ends up finding God and travelling across the globe to Italy, to the remote countryside, and joining this convent. And after she's welcomed there and settled in, she starts to realise that there's something very sinister going on within this place. So I didn't know a right lot about this movie going into it. I'd seen the trailer, and of course the fact it was going to be starring Sydney Sweeney in the lead, who of course has really shot to stardom recently. You know, she's at the height of her popularity right now, being cast in just about everything, and she's a fantastic actress, so that's definitely going to be the thing that's really drawing attention to this movie. But I do think it had a bit of an interesting premise, and yeah, as I say, I think the trailer looks fairly good, so I did decide to give this one a go. And I'm going to keep this review spoiler free. I'm not going to go into too much detail, just because I think a lot of the real elements about this film that are going to warrant more discussion really do get into the spoilers and sort of talking about some of the various reveals about the mystery that is going on within this convent. So I'm going to give this my brief thoughts on the movie, what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I think it could have done better. So as always, please do come down into the comments, let me know whether you've seen Immaculate and what you thought of the movie. So anyway, let's get into this review. To me, this was really a film of two halves. I think the first 30 or 40 minutes were a little bit too generic for me. And I do think it sets up quite a nice atmosphere. It's quite dark and unsettling, and, you know, all the attention to detail within this convent I think is really well done. The film looks really good, and it does kind of immerse you in this situation of what's going on. But to me, they've just relied on way too many generic horror tricks where, you know, you're following this character of Sydney Sweeney, and it's a lot of her wandering about the corridors of this place late at night, seeing all these creepy nuns wandering about. You're hearing creaking noises, people screaming, and she's kind of trying to piece together what's going on here. Is she dreaming? Is something strange going on here? Is something a little bit darker under the surface lurking? And I just think they didn't find a way to really engage you with what the mystery is here. And, you know, because at this point they don't really give you any breadcrumbs as to what might be going on. It is literally just, these are a bunch of strange people, as you'd expect in a religious convent. And there's nothing else really much to it, I thought. The film to me really gets interesting when you start to get these reveals of what some of the people there are up to. There's something that happens about halfway through the movie that sets up a very strange storyline, and the way this kind of plays out with its various reveals of what's happening here, what's the mystery, why is there these dark and horrific things going on within this convent, I think the film gets a lot more engaging. And I do think as well it starts to go in a much darker and more horrific direction than I was expecting. You know, a lot of the moments within this, I was a really like nightmarish situation for this main character, and you're wishing for her to get the hell out of this place when you realise what's really going on here. And I just think if you'd had a better lead up to that second half, and if they'd laid out more things that really intrigued you about this mystery, I think the film as a whole would have worked quite a bit better. And whilst the second half of this is more interesting and more engaging, I actually think they should have gone further with that. Because, you know, whilst I do think that it can be more effective sometimes in a story to be more subtle with the ideas and leaving certain things to your imagination and through suggestion, here I think within the context of this story, it would have been more effective to actually delve into those things further and actually kind of flesh out the details of this convent and what's been occurring here in a deeper way. I think that actually would have been more interesting, because there was a lot of ideas kind of brewing within this story, and at the end I kind of ended up with a slight feeling like we didn't really get enough from that with the build up that had been leading to everything that pays off. I do think the final 30 minutes are very effective though, and I think it's made all the more unsettling just because of the nature of this environment that this story is taking place within. Of course, it's being set within a religious convent where it's almost a little bit cult-like, where it's small and it brings in people who are much more vulnerable, who, you know, don't have that stability in their lives. They're people who have run away from home or have problems and are kind of looking for that sense of security and stability about them. So are probably a little bit more trusting of the authorities there than when they actually should be more trusting within their own, you know, intuition and that feeling that something just isn't really right about what's happening. And even with our lead character that Sydney Sweeney plays, there's a certain incident that happens about halfway through the movie where, despite the fact that she's this devout woman, this devout believer, she wants to go outside of this church to actually get real medical help, go to a hospital, and they kind of convince her that this is something that is only to be dealt with within this convent. And again, it's kind of playing and manipulating these people and making them have trust, even though they should be trusting their instincts that something is very, very wrong about everything that is going on within this place. Talking about Sydney Sweeney for a minute, you know, of course, she's a very talented actress. I actually first saw her on the original season of White Lotus, and I could definitely tell she was going to go on to more things after that. There's no wonder why she's getting the kind of attention and kind of this rise to fame and popularity that she is, because she's a very impressive actress, and she does just have something about her that what makes you invested in the character and want to go along with her in these stories. She does just have something about her. And I think especially in the second half of this movie where, you know, the situation really intensifies and she has to kind of show this inner turmoil and the emotion and just the craziness of everything that is going on and how somebody in this situation would react to all of this. I think she does an absolutely amazing job, and I think it will remind you of that performance we got from Florence Pugh in Midsummer. It's quite similar to that, and I think on the same like level as well. I think she's as good as that. I think she really is impressive and is suited to a character playing these kind of complicated characters going through a lot of stuff in their lives, and I think they really know how to show that within a situation playing out like this. I think the one thing I will say though is that I'm not entirely sure that I was convinced of her in the first half playing this character of a nun, you know, where she's this kind of very subdued, very innocent, very quiet character. And I don't know why, but I could just see in the beginning Sydney Sweeney in a nun outfit. And again, that might be my fault, it might be on me, but to me, the kind of characters that she tends to play or the kind of things that she excels at with her acting, she does not really feel like she would be the best cast as a nun. You know, this kind of, again, the way this character deals with certain situations, she becomes very strong throughout the story, and the way she deals with things in the second half feels convincing to me, but it doesn't resonate with how this character is at the beginning. You know, who she claims to be when she arrives here, that she's this, you know, kind of, you know, very, very polite, very sweet girl who's arrived there and she's this devout believer of God and she just wants to do right by the convent. Just something about it just doesn't entirely ring true for me, and I do wonder whether that casting is because Sydney Sweeney isn't quite right to play that type of role. I'm not sure, but, you know, all fair play to her, all appreciation for her wanting to do something different and not get typecast, and it's great that she's doing horror. And as I say as well, when things start to get really insane in that second half and she really has to show what she's made of, she's absolutely amazing in this. The last thing I will say is the final 5 minutes of the film are absolutely insane and was definitely the bit that will stick with me the most. I loved how dark and disturbing they went with these final moments. Just from a visual point of view, it's all very striking how everything in this final scene looks, and it's pretty shocking some of the directions they decide to go with this. I didn't think they'd go that far, and I suspect it will probably shock and upset some people. So yeah, it goes to some very dark places that I was not expecting, and that final scene kind of left me on a high from this, where I was impressed they were willing to go as dark with the story as they did. But I think it really worked within the context of this story. So overall, I do think this is a good film, and there are a lot of things about it that I did think really worked and were quite effective. I just felt like it could have been so much better. I feel I had like a bit of a sense after leaving the cinema that there was something just a little bit lackluster about it. And, you know, there are certain scenes here and certain ideas which I think are really interesting. And I just think they should have gone further with them. They should have filled out the running time with more of that, of those aspects of the story, rather than having this long, you know, opening 30-40 minutes where it's just your very sort of generic type horror movie. So that was a little bit disappointing. And I'm just worried as well over time that it's not going to be one that I have that much interest in ever going back to. But I still think there are some really good things about it. I think Sydney Sweeney is great in the lead role. And overall, if you're the type of person that are into these kind of cult religious type horror films, I think you'll have a fairly good time and get something out of this one. I'm going to give this one a 3 out of 5 rating. So that's all of my thoughts for you on Immaculate. As always, please do come and join me down for some discussion in the comment section and let me know what you thought of the movie. And do also let me know what you thought about that ending. You know, do you think they went too far with this? Was it too shocking? Or did you think it was just the right amount to kind of leave this on quite an explosive final moment? Let me know all of your thoughts on that down below. Also, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you've been enjoying my content, and do click that notification bell if you don't want to miss any of the future reviews I've got coming up for you soon. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.